Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. In this episode, we're going to continue our coverage of the ongoing crisis between Ukraine, Russia, and NATO Western member states. So we continue to hear about this Russian buildup that is ongoing. Now the major news that is coming in is that there are now many Russian forces now heading into Belarus. It sounds like Russian forces really started entering Belarus around January 7th. So the buildup has been going on for about 12 days now, or the better part of 2 weeks. So again, we first started hearing about forces, I guess, around January, again, January 7th, that started going into Belarus. And then we're hearing about a variety of units from the Far East heading towards the Ukrainian border and in some cases Belarus as well. A number of units such as the 155th Marine Brigade based out of Vladivostok. That unit has reportedly been deployed west as well. So a lot of these far eastern units are now being deployed to areas along the Ukrainian border and again in Belarus. And reportedly, this is the largest troop concentration that Russia has ever done in Belarus post Soviet collapse. And specifically, we're seeing large groups of Russian forces being offloaded here in this city of Gomel. And the talk, if you hear the mainstream media, is that if they attack across the Belarusian border, that they're basically in Kiev. Kiev just sits a few miles down the road. So I want to try and just give some reasonable facts and information in terms of how difficult it would in fact be fighting through the the frontier of Belarus and then entering Ukraine. And again, if you listen to the media, it sounds like not long after you cross the Belarusian border, you are in Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. So first, what's interesting is here you guys can see this. How do you say that? The Pulaski State Radiological Reserve. That is Chernobyl, folks. This is where the giant meltdown happened in the Soviet Union, and and obviously they call it a radiological reserve for a reason, meaning there is still a radioactivity. Now, in all likelihood, Russian forces would not be moving through this area, but with that being said, would not surprise me if they did. So how does the Russians enter Ukraine via the Belarusian border? And just kind of give you some idea of the distance that we're looking at. So let's say that they are going to cross, and this is where you'll see major highways, and obviously they would be using some of these major thoroughfares and highways to move their forces into Ukraine. And this would be an ideal route. And again, if we cross here, and there's a major border crossing there as well, and we just look at the first major town, the first major town that they hit is down here, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, but that's 41 miles from the border. Okay, and this is not a small town. It is a very large town that has industry. It has many multiple story buildings, infrastructure. So again, a very challenging objective just to move from the Belarusian border just south of Gomel, and and this is before you even get to Kiev, and then so that's 41 miles. Next, after if they bypass this town, and again, you've got major rivers that again, I'm not sure if these have frozen over. Probably in some cases, yes. in many cases, no, you just would not risk moving tanks, and that's why you would need to secure some of these bridgeheads over these rivers if, in fact, you wanted to cross the Desna River. So again, incredibly challenging. The weather right now in Kiev is about 36 degrees, so it's actually above freezing right now. But at night it drops down to 20s and 10s and what have you. And it's in other places it is below freezing. Gomel is below freezing. I believe it's in the high 20s right now, and snowing as well. So we're seeing quite a bit of snow this year too. Kharkiv in this area, we can expect Russian activity. A lot more plains with some interdispersed forests. But again, very, very cold. I believe it's just over 20 there, and is obviously going to drop down to the teens at night with snow. It's currently snowing in Kharkiv. But again, just a really nasty a weather environment to fight in. Obviously, humans are in these vehicles, and I can tell you Russian vehicles aren't the greatest in terms of being conducive to humans being inside of them. They're much more cramped than Western vehicles. If you compare a T-72 or T-80, a T-90, T-64 on the Ukrainian side, compared that to a Western tank, a Leopard, a Abrams. So again, inside of that Abrams, you can quite literally live, and we did, and we did. There was times where I might have got off my tank once or twice in a day, and the best way I could describe it for a lot of tankers is your land boats. So if you're on a boat in the river or on the or in the bay or on the ocean, you don't really get off your boat. You drive up next to another boat and you jump on and jump off. That's how kind of Western tankers operate. We very rarely get off our damn tanks except to check the track, do track tension, do some maintenance, but we're right back in. And we have heat, and in the wintertime, our vehicles are big enough, Western vehicles, where we can stretch our legs. I mean, hell, you can play a game of chess in the turrets. I mean, it's big enough to kind of do that. And if you really need to, you can sleep in there too, uncomfortably, but you can. Whereas in a Russian T-72 or T-80, very, very difficult, very cramped conditions, and it's just not conducive to staying in that tank for a very, very long time unless you're a really super short person. And even then, for us as tankers, if it was really cold out, you could throw the tarp over the top of the turret. You could elevate your main gun. You could elevate your 50 cal, and it would create like a little tent. And you fire up your heater, and it would retain some of that heat actually externally on the turret of the tank. So much more conducive to operating in cold weather, where you as a human being could get relatively comfortable. Now, the poor schmucks and the Bradleys and the infantry, yeah, that really sucked. But you know, that was the benefit of being a tanker. Now, for these Russians and these Ukrainians, they're in the elements, man. I mean it's horrible. But anyway, so once you get past this town, and if you are doing a major river crossing, or you're kind of shooting down along the river, and again you're kind of another 40, 50, 70 miles from that town. So again, it's a significant distance, going along the Belarusian border and attacking and attempting to attack Ukraine. And if you're going for the capital, again, it's quite a bit of distance. I mean, it's as a bird flies, to get onto to the east bank of Kiev, you're looking at 115 miles there, and then you would have to do probably a river crossing at some point. But I doubt they would do that. I think they would try to isolate. They'd probably stop up in here someplace. And again, same for the northern areas. But I mean, you have to understand too that so if they attacked west or even through the near Chernobyl or west of Chernobyl, and I believe that's Pripyat, that these areas again very inhospitable terrain, You have try to show you what it kind of looks like, where you can kind of see you have these vast spruce forests. And none of this is showing any street views. I just wanted to try and show you what the terrain looks like. Here we go. Yeah, we can go here. So we're kind of northwest of Kiev in this direction. We'll see if we can see what it looks like on the terrain, where you can kind of see what the Russians would be attacking in. So again, this kind of gives you an idea of basically 115 miles of these interdispersed spruce forests, and just I mean, this is like perfect anti-tank terrain. I could just imagine where the in-laws that the British have just given to the Ukrainians would work quite possibly very well in these areas. And not only the in-laws, I mean, obviously the RPG-7 would be relatively effective in this stuff too. And then just the fighting that would occur. I mean, because if you're firing off 30 Mike rounds into this forest, 125 millimeter main gun rounds, I mean, all this shit is just gonna splinter and just be shrapnel, and it is just gonna be a nightmare for anybody who is fighting in this mess. And now it's just not even gonna look like it's gonna be snow packed with a bunch of snow. It's gonna be colder than a which is tit in a brass brawl. I mean, it's just crazy. But anyway, as you can tell, I don't really like the cold weather, but sometimes you got to fight in it, right? But yeah, just to kind of give you an idea of what this was looking like, and yeah, it right now they're talking about 10 to 15 battalion tactical groups, possibly being deployed into this southern Belarus area, and again, I think it's more or less to possibly draw forces from some of their other areas where they may actually enter Ukraine. I would suspect that we would probably see much more activity along this area than actually along the Belarusian border. But again, the Russians have been very, very inventive in some of their past operations. Especially, you look at the operation, the counter operation to the Georgians, where they took their airborne infantry, put them on assault landing ships, and used them as really naval infantry, because they were the first ones that were ready, those VDV formations, and they put them on those assault landing ships and landed here at Poti, took control of this port facility, sunk a bunch of vessels that were in this port, took control of the city, and then Abkhazian forces moved down here from the south, and really caused issue for the Georgian military, while another force busted through the Ossetian border and went down and moved just north of Guri, and then started to move east to threaten Tbilisi. So again, they can be innovative, and you can't always rely on on what Russian initial indications are that they may or may not do, because they're a tricky bunch. I mean, they will definitely they will innovate, and they will surprise you. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We'll continue to monitor and report. Have a good day, everybody. More to come.